Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what is going to be a pretty power-packed session here, where I'm going to give you a whole lot of background on how we deal with being contacted by the police and how we deal with filing papers in their courts. And then, if we get to it, we're going to look at how we file a claim in a common law court. So let's get going. There's going to be no time for questions during this session. You will have to make notes as you go through. Obviously, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it back. But if you have questions, you will have to take notes as we go through. Right. Here we go. Here's our rundown of where we're heading. Firstly, we're going to look at to know who you are, and more importantly, who you are not. Born versus birthed. Okay, so that's where we're going to go to and from. And so I'm going to shift to another document. Bear with me as I find it. Here we go. Okay, the most important thing you need to know is what a person is. It comes from the old French persona, an actor's mask, a character in a play, not a real thing. The legal meaning of a person, there's two persons identified in the law: natural person and artificial person. An artificial person, let's go through them here. Natural person, human being, naturally born versus legally generated judicial person. Natural person refers to a human being as opposed to a legally created entity like a corporation. So we don't want to really be talking about ourselves as a human being. We're a living man or woman. We want to stay away from this word human, because a natural person is any human being with a legal capacity to represent the other entity. Okay, a living human being, a natural person. We don't want to be a living human being. Okay. Further research brought the website naturalperson.ca into focus. Suggest you all have a look of that, because we often get talked about the word individual. An individual is one single person. Okay, so we want to stay away from person, stay away from individual. Okay, I can make this document available for you to read through at any time. I suggest that if you don't know the difference or you're slightly confused, you get a copy of this and you read through it, person or human. There are only two persons in law, a human being and everything else. Okay, staying away from human being. Artificial person means corporate entity, etc. All right, I'm going to leave that because it's pretty straightforward, so long as you don't use those terms. All right. Moving on to the next document. Just check that off. Sorry, just so you know, I have a stack of documents that I have to show to you, so I'm negotiating my way around them. I think if I do that, I might get rid of that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is look at what our unalienable rights are. It's really important. Something that you are born with. People keep talking about their rights. And I'll give you an example. When the police arrest you and they read you your rights don't begin when they start to read them to you. You already have them. And in many cases, when the police arrest me, I remind them that I have my rights. Do I not have the right to remain silent? Yes, I do. But, well, I'm not going to tell you anything. Well, you've got to give me your name. Well, that would be a breach of my rights because I have a right to remain silent, so I don't have to give you my name. Yes, you do. Well, we're going to arrest you. Well, that's you breaching my rights. And as we go around in circles. So it's really important that you know what your unalienable rights are. You are born with these. So I can send this document to him. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it is a good read. And I'll give you a smaller version that we can have a look at. If I can find where it is. Too many documents. Here we go. So here's a quick rundown. The difference between a live birth record and a birth certificate, which is created by the state. Your mother autographs this. Now, we're going to get into getting an affidavit from your mother and or father, if they're still alive, is very important for you to have. They give you a lawful name as opposed to a corporatized name. Okay. I can also send you a copy of this if you want it, but you now have it on this video, so you can examine it at your leisure to know the difference between being born and what they call birthed. Birth is what they do when they put a ship in a dock. They birth it. What's important here is that you are the beneficiary of a public trust created by these guys over here. And you have an inherent rights through there. Again, I'm not going to spend lots of time going through this now because we want to get to what happens when they harass you. Okay. And we want... where is this document? There it is. Okay, also very important for us to know these names, what our name is, the appellations or the titles, Mr., Mrs., Miss. These are military titles. You don't want to be called Mr. or Ms. because it puts you in the military and makes you one of the lowest on the list. A postal address. Again, a post is a military thing. So we want to try and get down the track where we don't have a postal address or a post office box. And there's ways around that, which we'll get to as we discuss later. A residential address. This is what the police will often say, you know, where do you live? Well, you live everywhere. They want to know where your residential is, because if you're a resident, you will also come under their system. Got postcodes, all capital letters, the use of the surname, which is a name that is put on top of your actual name. I'm going to make this document available also for you to go through if you don't know anything about it, to have a read. All of these things are defined. Genders, male, female, man, woman. This is a very good document that I discovered. Dates of birth, signatures as opposed to autographs. Okay, man, woman, persons. I'm giving you a very, very broad overview so that you've got things that you can research for yourself. If you're not familiar with this stuff, it's really important that you do your own research to become familiar with this. If I just read it out to you, it'll go in one ear and out the other. But if you do your own research, this will sink in so you will know what you're talking about. Living, breathing, flesh and blood, men and women use an autograph, not a signature. Okay. It's a good one for people to know. The use of brackets and the four corners rule. If you're doing documents, very important for you to understand about this. Okay, I'm going to move on from that to our next. Now I'm putting things in here that I would not normally put in, but because people might be aware of them, I'm going to deal with them. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, remember, this is created by their system, created by the United Nations, and they know what a human is. It's a hue-man. It's a color of a man, because they understood that the human form was a product of genetic engineering and is therefore subservient to them. So if we quote human rights, we must never quote them that we have them, because we are then admitting that we are subservient. We can quote that humans have rights, and if humans have rights, therefore by definition, me being above them, I must have all of those rights as well. Okay, so stay away from the word human. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Well, if human beings, i.e. persons, are born free and equal in dignity and rights, then therefore the living man and woman must also have that. He can't be under that. He can only be equal to or greater than. So that's the way you use any human rights legislation. Okay, and they're very good, because down here, no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. But if you consent to it and you're doing it willingly, like all the people in Victoria at the moment are consenting to being in lockdown. They can't be held in lockdown. The powers that be know that, but by convincing them that they have to, they're staying in their cells. There's the old thing about if you bring a bird up in a cage and it's always locked, then when you open the door, it won't fly out because it doesn't believe it can. The other one is with young elephants. When they're very young, they tie their leg up with a big heavy chain. So if they pull against it, they can't get anywhere. And over time, they replace the chain with a piece of rope, and the elephant still believes that it can't get away from it. So moving on from that one. Next one is the Vienna Convention. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relationships. Now, this becomes really important when you fill out your affidavit. If you do one of my affidavits where you state you are a galactic soul, you're a missionary, an emissary, an ambassador, whatever it is, you have diplomatic immunity, which they can't challenge. It works to your advantage to make your affidavit from your soul perspective and not from the living man. The living man is under the soul, just as your soul is under the creator aspect of God. So it's worthwhile you perhaps understanding what the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations is about, because when you claim diplomatic immunity, the police officers can't act on you. They have really strict limitations on diplomats, and they have to prove that you are not a diplomat. So get a copy of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relationships. Okay. Again, my apologies for flying through all of these, but I want to give you a good foundation of documents and bits and pieces so that you can know where you are. Okay, here's the affidavit that I've talked about. This has since been updated to make it even stronger, but basically you will see here, this is an affidavit of Alex. This is my affidavit. So this is my soul name. In and through the living being it incarnated into, this is the name that was given to me by my mother. So there's two parts to this affidavit. There's the soul and the living being that it is incarnate into. This up here is a stamp of my company. Now, why is that important? The Magistrates Court is a trading name of the Department of Justice. I'll get to this again later. I have a company under their system, and this is a trading name of that company. So this entity has exactly the same legal status as a magistrate's court. So this has now been stamped by the Moot Court of Terra Australis. That's my autograph and my initials, both my sole initial and my living man initial. And this is the Justice of the Peace. And this is a certified true copy that was served on 10 individuals: Minister of Police, Chief Commissioner of Police, head of the courts, head of the judiciary. All of the important people who are going to screw you around with law got served with this affidavit. Your affidavit, this is the most powerful document you can ever have. And the reason for that is, in their system, an affidavit that is not challenged or rebutted within 28 days not only stands as truth in law, it becomes the law. So you are setting law with your affidavit when you serve it on them, and they have 28 days to challenge it. And it's pretty thorough as it goes through, and it rebuts any authority of any organisation. It rebuts the pontiffs. It rebuts the unum sanctum. So there is an opportunity. If you do not have an affidavit that involves and contains all of this information, you must get one as soon as possible. It will set you free from the system. The system now has to prove everything. And it can't do it because it didn't rebut it when it had the chance. So we go through here. State of Victoria is rebutted, has no authority. Victorian government, another name for them, rebutted. These are all corporate entities. Department of Justice and Community Safety, which is the courts. The courts have no jurisdiction of you. If I read that paragraph, the soul and the living being we're incarnated into renounce, rebut, disassociate, and reject that the corporate entity, Department of Justice and Community Safety, with an ABN number, so it's a business, and all of its trading names, which is Magistrates Court, has any authority or jurisdiction over us in any way. Now, if they don't rebut this within 28 days, their courts have no authority or jurisdiction over me whatsoever, which means I come under common law justice. Now, let's say that I go and, that doesn't say I'm free to do what I want. Let's say I go out and rob a bank and I shoot someone. Well, I get arrested and I get tried under a common law jury, which is what the right is. Now, what happened is we used to have these all the time. And their criminal system said, we can hijack this and we can make money out of it. So what they do is they bring you into a magistrate's court for an arraignment. And what the arraignment is about is turning you from a living man into a dead entity. They literally kill you. Then they can bring you into their system and charge you under the Crimes Act. Okay, the Crimes Act is a mirror of natural law. They duplicated it. Everybody thinks, well, that's the law because it's the Crimes Act. No, it is a mirror of common law. It's really important to know that. So you can go in and say, no, thank you. I do not wish to be tried under your system. I want to be tried under common law in front of a jury of my peers. And you're entitled to that. So it's really important to know all of those things. Now, what do we do once we've got this signed? Oh, I should have told you too, that must be signed on every page at the bottom by you and by the witnesses. You'll get it witnessed by a Justice of the Peace. If you can't find a Justice of the Peace, 3 adults who are not blood related to you can sign it. All 3. But your affidavit is absolutely essential. Okay, moving on. You will send a copy of this, not the original, a copy. And I suggest you might want to print it out in purple because purple is the color used by royalty, and you are the king or queen of your realm. No one comes above you other than God. So you in your living form are the king or queen of your realm. Now you will send that affidavit off by registered mail to a list of 9 or 10 people. And it's all the same cover letter here, just addressed to different people. And you'll see once again, I've stamped it with my court. This one's gone off to the Chief Executive Officer of Melbourne Magistrates Court. Okay, and he is told there's no need for him to respond. This is truth. However, if you elect not to challenge this affidavit with irrefutable proof within 28 days, it will be taken that you consent it stands as truth. So they have 28 days to write back to you and say, I challenge it. I want to have it heard before a jury of 12 people. Okay. Now, the only response I got was from the Attorney General Solicitor's Office, basically saying, oh, well, we don't consider that your affidavit's a legal document. Well, that would be undermining their whole legal system. But what they consider is not a challenge. It's just an opinion. So they never challenged it. So you send that off with the cover letters to each of these things by registered mail. You're sending that off to registered mail. Then you must keep track of them. Really important that you can prove what's going on. So here is my postal copies of them being sent off and the date they were sent off. Okay, this means it has been served. So you need to keep all of these and photocopy them as a record. The next thing that you need to do after that is you need to track it to know when it arrived. And here we go. This is me going on to Australia Post. I punch in the number and it tells me that it's been delivered on the 14th. So I know that Jill Hennessy was served on the 14th of August, and that's when I start my 28-day countdown from. Okay, she has been legally served and she didn't respond. Okay. Now, the next thing that you do, and you can do, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I recommend that you do, is you serve, after that 28 days has expired, you serve them with a notice of acceptance of the affidavit by acquisitions by silence. So what I've done here is I've basically said to them, oh, I've got something funny going on there. What's going on? I basically say to them, you were served with an affidavit on these dates that said this in these particular paragraphs. So this one was to the police minister or chief of police, specifically saying you were told in paragraph 44 that you had no authority and you didn't rebut that. And you're given 28 days to do it. Therefore, the affidavit dated the 8th of the 9th now stands as truth in law. And by tacit acquiescence, he who does not deny admits. Therefore, the tacit acquiescence of all of the police force is taken as locked in, and the full acceptance of the ramifications if they fail to adhere to it. Meaning, if they pull me over in the car, they're committing an unlawful detention. So they are given a notice of acceptance of the affidavit by acquiescence by silence. Now, you put a stamp on it and you cross it over, which means you are taking control of the postal side of things. You've paid for its bill of fare and now you're cancelling it and claiming it for you. This is my own personal seal. It cost about, I think, $30, $40 or something to get one made up. and you stamp it with your authority, again, this is filed in the moot court. So it's been filed in a court, and it does not require any ruling from any other court, because I'm the Postmaster General of my kingdom. Up in the top left corner, this is the flag under which I fly. I created it. It's a Eureka mock-up with a coat of arms. So this is my coat of arms. If you get letters from the police, they'll have a logo here or a trademark, because they operate under that trademark, and we'll get to that later on. So you're saying, no, 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 no. I operate under this. This is the authority I operate under. This is my kingdom. Here, I'm the Postmaster General. I appoint all the positions. I'm the authority in this matter. Okay, so you're sending it to them. And then you close it off at the other end as well, and you autograph it with your fingerprint. Okay. The next thing that we're going to look at is that you put a schedule of fees with that. So you let them know up front what the fees are going to be. So here's a notice of the schedule of fees for an unlawful stop or a detention pursuant to a cease and desist notice that I served on them as well. So what we do is we go through and say, look, we've rebutted any claims that you have any authority over us. So anything that you're doing now, you're acting without authority and as a private citizen. And guess what? You're carrying a gun, and you're not authorized to use it, and you're not authorized to carry it as a private citizen. Therefore, anything that you do will have the added aspect of it being aggravated. So we make a few things, we remind them, we're not a citizen, we're not an alien, we're a non-citizen and non-alien, and we're a national of Terra Australis. Now, I use Terra Australis to refer to the mainland of what we would colloquially call Australia, so that there is no confusion between the corporate entity of Australia, which we'll get to later, and the land on which we are on. Now, the First Nation people who were here before the white man came have lots of different names for the land. Okay, it was called Terra Australis before the white man got here by the white man. So this is just a term that takes me out of their system 100%. The First Nations people would put a different name in here depending on what part of this land they come from. Okay, but for me, Terra Australis is good enough to take me outside of their system. We don't consent to the authority. We rebut any and all presumptions. And then I get to my schedule. So if they pull me over, it's $50,000. It's $200 a minute for the duration of the unlawful detention. So if they keep me for an hour from that time, that's, what's that, $12,000? It's not bad day's work. If they threaten to arrest me, or if you don't give us your name, we're going to arrest you. Thank you very much. That's $2,000. So from this point on, when they've stopped me, I ask 3 questions. When they first stop me, I ask them, what's the emergency? They'll then tell me there is no emergency. So they've deceitfully used their sirens and things to pull me over. Okay, so they're acting dishonorably. I then ask them, have I breached the peace, disturbed the peace? They'll say no. Have I committed a crime? No. Then I'm free to go, because the only authority that a constable has is to keep the peace. From that moment on, it's an unlawful detention, and they're on my time now. So this service, this schedule clicks in from that moment on. If they threaten to arrest me, $2,000. So I encourage them to threaten to arrest me several times. If they issue an instrument, like they give you a piece of paper or it comes later on, it's $5,000. A warrant, $10,000. Confiscation of your property. For instance, if they arrest you, they'll take your car keys off you. Well, the car key usually has your house key as well. So they've stolen 2 items. So at $5,000 a day, they took my phone, they took my car keys. So in the finish, they got $20,000 for items that they took off me unlawfully. Doesn't matter that they gave them back. They had no right to take them in the first place. So you go through and you will finish up creating a list. Detention or remand resulting in deprivation of liberty, pursuant to any court order. So if they put an order to keep you in jail overnight, it's $100,000 per day. Any unlawful impoundment of your car is $250,000 per living man or woman involved. All of these are per man or woman. So if two police pull you over, they're both going to get issued with that fine. This is why I always ask for a supervisor to come, because rather than me putting out an invoice to 2 police, I'll put it out to 4 or 6. Okay, now I just wanted to make it clear again, I don't give legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you what I would do in a given circumstance. You're not required to follow what I do. This is just a process that I've put in place. And it's not a short-term fix. You have to be in it for the long haul, because this takes time to get everything happening. All right, moving along. Right, if you have living parents, get them to fill out an affidavit. Okay, and I do have it here somewhere. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I forgot to put it in. Okay, I don't seem to have it here, but it's really simple. It's an affidavit from your mother and or your father saying that at the moment you were born, and they've known you your whole life, but at the moment you were born, they named you Mary Jane. They didn't name you Mary Jane Smith. They didn't name you the family name, the surname, because that wasn't an issue. You were given the name Mary Jane. Now, they are the only living witnesses to that event. Really powerful affidavit to get constructed. Again, if you need a copy of it, I will give it to you. But I don't seem to have it on my list here, and I don't want to waste time bringing up that when you can access it later. But really consider that. An affidavit from someone who was a witness to the birth. Let's say that your parents are both deceased, but there was an auntie who is still alive and she was at the birth, and she can be a witness to the birth. So that's very important that you do that. Okay. The next thing to do is to register your birth, your live birth, with an external organisation like the Common Law Court. And there are 2 options for you at the moment that you can do that. You can register it with the Common Law Court in Australia, for which you will get a BC number, and you can also register it with the Common Law Court in the UK International, and you will also get a BC number. This is my registration for my BC with the UK site. Okay, so if they want to challenge that I'm a living man, they have to take it up with the International Common Law Court. So you want to get this piece of paper which confirms that you are a living man or woman. To do that, you go to commonlawcourt.com, or you can go to commonlawcourtaus.org to get one from Australia. Now, you will then get, that was a printout that they gave me for the actual filing. Is a copy of the filing. Then they give a birth certificate, which I think should be named a certificate of being born or something. We should stay away from this terminology, but we're going to get to that. But you will see that this is a certified copy in a book of deeds that verifies that I am a living man. And again, it's really important that you have something in paper, because if you don't do this, there is no proof that you exist. Because people could say, well, yeah, but we know you, Alex. But if I walk down the street and you start talk to somebody who doesn't know me, there's no proof that I exist. And their birth certificate that they create is what they use to tie you in. So what you're doing is saying, no, 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 I'm going to create and own my own birth certificate. So it's very important that you get this document. This one is from the Common Law Court, aus.org. So you can see my BC number is much less than the other one was. Once you have got that, you can get ownership of your fictitious name, the one that was created by the system. And you can see here again, the fictitious name to be registered, it's the capital lettered name. So I'm claiming ownership of this. And the way I can do that is because their creation of the name was fraudulent. So again, they would have to challenge the International Common Law Court and the Common Law Court of Australia and prove that this was fraudulent as a way to try to cover up the fact that theirs is fraudulent. So what we're doing is we're using their processes and their systems against them. So very important that you get this FN number. Now again, this one is from the international. So I have a FN 2075786 ownership of this name. Why is that important? Because I also have one from Australia. Okay, and you'll see the number is different. So they are two independent sources that verify each other. Okay, their birth certificate that they create has no support from any other area. So here are two independent sources that say that I own that fictitious name, which means down the track, if the system uses my fictitious name, they're doing it without my permission. It's breach of copyright. Really important that we are accumulating our evidence against them. Okay, next thing that you can do, and you should do, is get a copy of the declaration, common law declaration. If you are with the Australian group and you think, oh yeah, but this was the UK, it doesn't matter. This is a common law declaration that applies to all living men and women, all living men and women. So again, you're supporting your evidence here. There is an Australian one that will coming out as well, but get yourself a common law Great Britain International Declaration. I'll leave you to read that through when you get it. You can see it online at the international site, commonlawcourt.com. That's in the UK. Very important that you accumulate your evidence, because if you go into one of their courts, they work on paper. You could say this, it means nothing. You have the piece of paper in their system, it's the piece of paper that has the weight. So it's important you accumulate all of these documents as your ammunition to defend yourself in their system. Now, the next thing that you might like to do is a little fun thing called setting up a ABN number. Now, what does that mean? It means you're going to register yourself as a business. And people say to me, hang on, I thought you wanted to get out of the system. And I say, exactly. Now, I registered with the Australian Business Register here. And this is a letter I wrote to her. In completing your online application, I typed in lowercase letters for my name, but your system converted them to uppercase. Your system would also not permit me to continue unless I selected a title, despite the fact there was not option for no title. Your correspondence was sent to the address at which I reside, addressed to this name, but commenced using this. Because of these issues, I believe there may not be complete disclosure by the Australian Business Registrar of the intention and process it has. So I'm calling them on their fraud. So I then give them some questions. I want to correct and be clear on what the entity you have registered actually is. So I give them a whole list of questions. Contain no return address or ABN. This is a really important one to note. Unless the Australian Business Register has an exemption, this is a breach of Section 153 of the Corporations Act. Really important. Why is that important? Because if it has no ABN, it's a breach of the Corporations Act. Now, you look at any document you get from the police or anyone like that, when they serve you with something, it does not have an ABN on it. And that is a breach of Section 153 of the Corporations Act, which means the document's not legal. Okay, that's a really important one. I'm going to stress it once again. Section 153 of the Corporations Act. They have to have an exemption, and there is no exemption. So there's a whole lot of things there that I then sent back to them saying, you need to answer all of these questions because I'm not happy about this. This hasn't been properly done. If I don't receive a dated response from you on addressed letterhead containing an ABN within 28 days, and none of the points are rebutted, I will conclude you're in agreement with each of the points I've declared, that you're acting inappropriately and unlawfully. Okay, so she then hang on, I need to show you the next one. Here it is. Okay, so here's what they'd sent me back in January. It was addressed to Mr. Trevor Alexander, but then said, Dear Mr. Alexander. They're two separate things. So they're trying to create this way of attaching it all the way through. And so they'd given me an Australian business number. Okay, and they tell you, well, and look at this. Australian Business Register. So what I have now is I have proof that this name is a business and that this business was created on the 15th of January. So when the police try to deceive me by making the accused, and they use this name, I can say, I'm sorry, that's not me, that's a business. And here's the document to prove it. So I'm playing them at their own game. I have proof that the accusation is being made against a business, not against a living man. Well, how are they going to counter that? They can't. What was interesting is I found another one up in Queensland. I said, it's also a business up in Queensland. So who are you doing? Now, of course, I cancelled this registration because they weren't being transparent. But I still have the piece of paper that says it was a business at that time. So I would suggest that those of you who really feel that you want to get into this, this is another piece of ammunition that you can hit them with. Now, they sent me a response. Again, they used another different name rather than Trevor John Alexander or Mr. Alexander. Now it's Mr. Trevor Alexander. So they're creating all of these different ways to tie you in so that they can contract with you. And their responses are down here. They try to give excuses. It broadly comes into the themes we addressed. Australian BR is a whole of government program managed by the Australian Tax Office, an Australian government agency. Well, we know that the ATO is not an Australian government agency. It's a private corporation. So what are they saying here? They're either lying about the fact that it's part of the government, or the government, Australian government, is an overseas organisation. Then I went into the coat of arms. All of these things are addressed in there, which again, down the track, if I wanted to use against them, I can use it because I've got it in writing. I can rip it apart. But what I got was a piece of paper that said that my capital lettered name was a business, not a living man. And it was created on the 15th of January, when was it, 2017 or something. Okay, the next thing you might want to do is to send off a letter specifically to births, deaths and marriages. And you can see I sent this one back on the 1st of April 2015, which I thought was fun because they might have taken it as a joke, where I separated myself from the name that they had made. Again, I'm creating a paper trail and they're not rebutting it. Please acknowledge receipt of this letter and your understanding of the contents of this letter by written response within 28 days. Your failure to acknowledge this letter and the contents within the defined period will be taken as your understanding and acceptance of the contents. Now, I sent another one for my son who had, he was a home birth, but the midwife had sent us this off and registered his birth. So we counted it for his birth, and my other daughter, we didn't have a midwife, so she didn't send it off. So you can send this letter off rebutting anything for your children, anything like that. It's important that you create the paper trail. So if you want a copy of what to send, the affidavit deals with this, but this is another nail in the coffin. It's a really specific one to them to deal with. Okay, let's move on now. That you also can do this with your house, your car. Now I'm going to just do it with the car because we're talking about the sort of things like being pulled over for speeding and whatever. Now my car, my automobile, as opposed to the motor vehicle that they call it, which is a misnomer. Okay, there's a difference between, they will always say you're the driver of a motor vehicle. You rebut it straight away. You say, I am not the driver of a motor vehicle. I am a traveller in a car. I'm a traveller in an automobile. What is your evidence to say that I am the driver of a motor vehicle? They're not. They're creating a misnomer and getting to you agree. So anytime that they say motor vehicle driver, you rebut it straight away. Say, no, I'm not. So here I've got, they say your car has to be registered. Your motor vehicle must be registered. Yes, a motor vehicle does have to be registered, but not a car, not an automobile. And in fact, the Road Safety Act says that Roads Corporation shall register vehicles. But under business law, there can't be a monopoly in business. So you could choose to register it anywhere you want, so long as under their rules, it's registered. For instance, if a New South Wales registered car is driving on Victorian roads, it's not registered in Victoria, but it's still permitted to drive, to travel. So this is a certificate of registration created by my company. Remember, this is a substitute for the Magistrates Court. It is registered as being owned by me, and I give the details. Now here, pursuant to Statute of Monopolies 1623, which says there cannot be a monopoly in business. So Vic Roads cannot claim to be the only ones to register a motor vehicle, let alone a car, which they can't do anyway. Australian consumer law supports that, and the Competition and Consumer Act 2010. So I give the type of car, the colour, the engine number, the chassis number, and it's owned by me, because every single car that is registered as a motor vehicle is registered to the capital lettered name, and they own the capital lettered name, therefore they own your motor vehicle. That's why they can do whatever they want with it, because they own it. So you have to get the ownership back for you. Owned by the sole ambassador of the, and this is what my affidavit says, I'm an ambassador of the Fifth Dimensional Galactic Federation. They can't challenge that because they can't have no documents to prove to the contrary. They may not believe it, but belief means nothing in the law. And I'm incarnate into a living being. So it's been registered with this corporation, which is exactly the same as if it's registered with Roads Corporation, Vic Roads. And here's what I do. I have an optional display number plate, which is this, M31, and then a cartouche. And that's what I have on my car. It's a blue plate. And I've sent a cease and desist notice to the police saying, this is my car. If you pull me over, it's going to cost you $50,000 each. And they've been served that notice. They got given 28 days to counter it, reply, and they didn't. So it stands as truth in law. And they've been served with invoices for when they pulled me over. Okay, so you want a certificate of registration. But why would you have just one? Also, register your car with the Australian government as a security. Now, they called it a motor vehicle, okay, but it's still registered as collateral as being owned by me. So if the police say, ah, yes, but it's been registered as a motor vehicle, say, yes, but it's been registered as a motor vehicle owned by me, just in case I want to use it for business purposes. Even a car that is commercially registered can be used for private purposes. So if you're not transporting any goods or people for money, if you're not doing business or trade and you're just driving your kids down to the shop, you're using it for private purposes. It's not a motor vehicle at that time. It's only a motor vehicle when it's being used for commerce. And I've got some more documents I can give you on that. So not only have you got it registered with your own company or someone else's or the neighbours or your brothers or whatever, but now you've got it registered with the Australian government as a secured property owned by you. Here's down here, Lord Trevor John. But why would you stop there when you could do it? And here's a copy of the English statutes, if you want to get a copy of that to read it. The English Statute of Monopolies of 1623, which is still in act. It's still in place. Now, none of these laws apply to us, common law people. Okay, I'm not putting this in saying, I follow this law. I'm putting it in saying, you have to follow this law. You come under this law, mate, not me. And under your statutes, there cannot be a monopoly in business. Okay, so it's good for you to understand how to use their laws against them and how to word it in such a way that you don't have to follow it. When the cops say to me, oh, you know, under the statute, under the Road Safety Act, I said, that's your law, mate. You have to follow that. I don't. I haven't consented. And in fact, I've rebutted it. So you can quote it as much as you want, but it's going to get you into trouble. Okay. Do I stop there? No, I don't. Remember, the more nails you can put in their coffin, the better. So here is, and this again shouldn't be called motor vehicle registration certificate. It's got to be changed. That should be changed to automobile/car registration certificate. We should not put contact details of vehicle owner. It should be of car or automobile owner. And this is one of the things we were talking about in the meetings, how things should be vetted before they're put out there. But we'll get to that. Here's all the details of it. The previous owner was, according to them, the capital lettered entity, right? So I've put that in there and I have transferred it from when they claimed ownership of it to now me. Okay. So this is another piece of paper that they would have to fight, which supports all the others, saying, no, 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 no. This is who owns it because it's registered. But we've got to change all these references to motor vehicle. But this only has relevance if I'm going to use my car for business. When that term is used, motor vehicle. But if I don't intend to use it for business, we need to get rid of that. So that was the Australian one, but of course, I did the same thing in the UK. It's registered in the UK. There it is, description of land or property. Registered there, full name of the first owner. So all the details are here, tying it in all the way through. So when I get into their court, if I challenge who owns the car, all they're going to be able to pull up is Vic Roads, which we know is fraudulent. I'll shoot that down. But then I put forward 4 independent pieces of evidence that say, no, this is who owns it. Okay, you're countering them. You're outweighing it. So look at registering, not just on the Australian one, but also on the UK site. All right. Now, where does that all become relevant? It all becomes relevant when you serve this little document on the police. And it's a notice to cease and desist. And you see it's got all my stamps on it. It's all in purple. It's not in Times New Roman. Don't do any documents in Times New Roman. This is Baskerville font, which I happen to like. Because Times New Roman is their font, as is 12. 12 font, Times New Roman. So this is all printed out in Baskerville 11.5. And purple because I am the king of my kingdom. So what I'm basically doing is reiterating parts of my affidavit. I always bring everything back to my affidavit, which stands as truth in law. So say to the magistrate, magistrate, you're bound by the law. A judge is bound by the law, and you understand that an unchallenged affidavit becomes the law. So I'm just bringing it back and reminding you all that at paragraph 26 of my affidavit, which you didn't rebut, that you have no jurisdiction on the land known as Terra Australia. You've got no treaties. You're just coming in as a foreign corporation trying to impose your will. So I remind them all of this. And I quite simply say, there you are, there's my number plate. It's my ID plate. So when you see it, it's going to be really clear for you to know who I am. And just in case you're not sure of that, I've got this in the back window. Unlawful engagement in detention or an attempt to coerce business by any member of the corporation, Police Department, Vic, trading as Victoria Police, incurs fees starting with an engagement fee of $50,000 per employee member of Victoria Police. So I've warned them, I've given them notice, plenty of notice, and I send this cease and desist. Stop annoying me. And I give them all the conditions. Additional fees will be incurred depending on what they do. And here, your failure to carry out or abide by the cease and desist notice creates an irrevocable estoppel by acquiescence. Means you can't then bring any claims, legal actions, orders, demands, lawsuits, charges. You can't bring any of that whatsoever against me. So instantly, anything that they sent is just dismissed. You can't do it. You had your chance, you blew it. Tacit acquiescence. And it also leaves me open that I can actually make more claims against them if I want to. So this is a very important document that you then serve on the police. You've served your affidavit. The 28 days are up. You've served a notice of acceptance of the affidavit. You then send this. You've done all the things to do with your car. They can't screw you because this is all done under their system. There's a copy of the notice that's in the back window. Again, stamped, initialed with a date and my autograph on it. And I give them a copy of my schedule of fees with it, which they were at the time. They've now gone up. And I tell them the fees separate and cumulative at 3% per day they were at that point. So the invoice that I served on 6 policemen for around about 50,000 is now a commercial lien worth $100 million each. And down the track, I will claim on that. I just don't need the money at the moment. Okay, so we give them that document. Alrighty, let's now get into the next part of this, which I'm going to just bring it up here. Here we go. So we've gone through the first part and I can send you a copy of this breakdown sheet that will go along with this presentation. We're up to know your accuser. You need to know who you're up against and then you'll know how to deal with them. So first of all, who or what is Australia? Okay. Wait a minute, what have I just discovered here? Yes, this is the affidavit I talked about earlier of your mother or father. This is the one of the mother. This is the affidavit of a mother of an Australian birth. So this would be your mother. And let's say your mother is Mary Jane Smith. And what she's saying is that she was born on the land known as Terra Australia. She's a national, she's a non-alien. And on the particular date, on that land, she gave life birth to a creation of Almighty God, a female offspring whom she named Sarah Jane. Now, this is an affidavit. There's going to be no one else who is a prima facie witness to your being born. She goes on to say that she had no idea that when she was told she had to register, that was actually a lie. And she had been told that all of this other stuff was happened. So, and if she had done that, she would not have been done it. I'm aware this claim of mandatory registration was false and deliberately deceptive. I'm now aware the registration was done without full disclosure of all these details, without my knowledge or consent. All of this stuff happened. Signed the affidavit. Well, who's going to counter that in a court? Who's going to be there to say, well, actually, no, I knew that you knew that was going on? It's not. So that affidavit is a very, very important one, very powerful one to support your position. Okay. Let's go here. There is to do with your car. So I'm just finding a few other documents and jumping out of here out of time, but I'll get them. Where have we all gone? So I'm just trying to share a document. Right. The other document that I have for you to look at is it's an American document, but the principles are the same. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, The Australian courts don't take any notice of American rulings, but you use them in support when there's no rulings here. You can use these. Now, these are very good to do with the difference between traveling, the difference between a motor vehicle and an automobile, and people's rights to freedom on the highways. And there is a number, and I've just highlighted a couple of these as we go through this document. You can see it's 21 pages long of court rulings from the US on the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highway. Now, that's of a citizen. We're not a citizen, we're a living man and woman. We actually come above that. So if a citizen has the right to travel upon the public highways, then a living man or woman certainly does. These are very, very good to use to cite the difference between an automobile and a motor vehicle. There's a clear distinction between an automobile and a motor vehicle. An automobile has been defined as a pleasure vehicle designed for the transportation of, well, persons. We don't want to get on that, but if it's can be done for a person, then it can be done for a living man or woman, because we're above that. So we have the same things. So this document is available for those of you who want to know more about the difference between traveling and driving. A driver as distinct from a traveler. A driver is one employed, keyword, in conducting a coach or other vehicle. Employed, you have to be paid. You have to be on the payroll. So when they recently accused me of driving whilst disqualified, said, I haven't had a job for 10 years. Where am I employed? I can't drive. I can't be disqualified from driving if I'm not driving. But they're trying to create joinder. So this document is a good one that you can have if you want. I can't remember where I compiled it from, but it has lots of good stuff. And yes, it's relevant to the US, but it's also about rights. So it's an important one for lack of jurisdiction. Okay. So let's now get into the next part of our presentation, knowing your accuser. Who or what's Australia? Who or what is Victoria? Who are Victoria Police? What are their rights? Who is Fines Victoria? Who is the Magistrates Court? And what are their rights? Okay, so we'll jump into to those now. And I'm going to start with, if I can find it. Okay. First thing we're going to look at is the Acts Interpretation Act of 1901. Now, why are we looking at that? Because under Section 2B, definitions, it says this rather interesting thing. Australia means the Commonwealth of Australia, and when used in a geographical sense, okay, so we're talking about the geography, includes Norfolk Island, the territory of Christmas Island, and the territory of Cocos Island, but does not include any other external territory. Now, there is a maxim of law that says whatever is included excludes everything else. So by saying the Commonwealth of Australia includes Norfolk Island, territory of Christmas Island, territory of Cocos, the Commonwealth of Australia, i.e. Australia, is Norfolk Island. It is the land of Norfolk Island. It's tucked away in this Interpretations Act. So we are not on the land Australia. We're not on it. And if they are not on it either, they have no authority on it. Commonwealth of Australia. Australia is not the land, so they have no authority here. Now, where that becomes relevant, in New South Wales, if you're in New South Wales, it's Lord Howe Island is New South Wales. I haven't been able to track it down yet, but I'm pretty sure that Victoria is also on New South Wales because it originally seceded away from New South Wales, and I haven't been able to find another island in the legislation anywhere. So it would still be on Lord Howe Island is Victoria, the state of Victoria, because the state of Victoria only exists on a piece of paper. It's not a geographical thing, because there were living men and women on the land before the white man got here. So they couldn't claim it. They had to claim an island that had no people on it. Very important to know that. Okay, go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. And some of you probably already know this stuff, but we're just giving a video for everyone to get a really good background. Here we are, Commonwealth of Australia. Well, we know Commonwealth of Australia is Australia. Australia is Commonwealth of Australia. It's on Norfolk Island. Is it? No. Business address, 1601 Massachusetts Avenue, care of Australian Embassy. It's in Washington. The Commonwealth of Australia is a business in Washington, DC. Now, Washington, DC is one of not 3, but 4 Illuminati cities of control around the world. The other being the City of London, the Vatican, which was the primary one, and Latter Square in New Zealand, which has popped up. And the reason Latter Square's there is because it's to do with the dateline. So here we go. All of these so-called governments are foreign corporations. They're not of the people. Very useful to know that. Okay, the next thing in our list is this one. Sorry. State of Victoria. Now, I'm in Victoria. You can do this for other states, but most of us on the call are Victoria, so we're doing it here for them. Look at this. The State of Victoria, Parliament of Victoria. It's a business. It's got an ABN number. But look at this. Down here, it's got a trading name, Parliament of Victoria. When was it established? November 1999. November 1999. It was actually snuck in with a whole lot of other things that were registered 3 days before the referendum. Before the national referendum, when they were asking whether Australians wanted to become a republic and do all of this, while all that was going on, they snuck in all these corporations to replace what would have been, in lowercase, the state of Victoria. See, when the colonists of the state of Victoria voted in their people to govern them, the state of Victoria was lowercase. In 1999, in the middle of the night, they usurped and they put this corporation in, and no one noticed, because business as usual. Now, here's some interesting things. Where's the piece of paper that gives this entity, State of Victoria, Parliament of Victoria, any authority over any legislation before November 1999? Where did the people grant this corporation authority over the Road Safety Act of 1986? There's no documents where the people have allowed all of the previous legislation, whether it's legitimate or not, to be taken over by this corporation. That date is very important when you're challenging something challenge their authority over the Road Safety Act. Where's the piece of paper that gives them authority over anything before that? Okay. Just to show you again, here it is, the historical details. And again, when you're going to court, you table both these documents. You say, here's this document says that. Here's another document says the same thing. 1st of November to this, registered. It's registered for tax because it's a business. It's got a trading name, so it's doing business. Can't do that with a people. Well, we don't stop with them. Look at this one. Police Department Vic, trading name, Victoria Police, capital letters, really important, capital letters. November 1999. Well, isn't that interesting? It was registered on exactly the same date as the Parliament of Victoria. Police Department. Where does Police Department Vic, registered in 1986, have any authority to implement the Road Safety Act of 1986? Who gave them that authority? Parliament of Victoria? Well, who gave them the authority? No one. There's no line of authority going on here. So they have no authority. They're a corporation. They don't represent the people. How are they going to prove it? And this is what you do. If you get in a case, you say, show me the piece of paper. They can't do it because there isn't one. Sorry, is that showing up? I'm not sure if that's showing up. Let me try that again. Could you see that document? That one. Can you see that one now? So here, Police Department Vic.
Yes.
Trading as Victoria Police, capital lettered. Where did they get any authority over anything like the Road Safety Act, which was 13 years before? Who gave them the authority to police it? Well, we know who gave them the authority. The Parliament of Victoria, another corporation created on exactly the same day. Well, who gave them the authority? Follow the money, follow the money. Okay. So the question from that is, well, we know that Victoria is just a name on a paper. The state of Victoria is actually ink on paper. And that becomes really relevant when we get to talking about the COVID restrictions. Because the people never gave this corporation any authority, any power. They usurped it in a supposed election. They slipped it in while people were looking the other way. There was a takeover, there was a coup, and the people were not informed. There was not full disclosure of what was been going on, and there never has been. Okay, so let's have a little look at this document, police powers. Okay, you can get it from the Know Your Rights and the Police CIR. I think that's Mike Holt's one as well. So you can get a copy of this by printing it out. And it's really important that you read through this to understand what rights they do have and what rights they don't. And I'm going to show you my document, which probably goes into a little bit more because I don't worry about constitutions and all those bits and pieces. But there's really powerful points in here. And court rulings. They have no power whatsoever to arrest or detain a citizen, let alone a living man or being, for the purpose of questioning him. What's your name? You don't have authority to ask me my name. You've got no power to compel me to give you your name. It doesn't matter whether the questioning or the investigation is for the purpose of enabling them to ascertain whether you're a person guilty of a crime or not. Such conduct is not only destructive of civil liberties, it's unlawful. It's there in black and white, Supreme Court ruling. So what police are going around thinking they're above the law? Well, if you don't give us your name, we're going to arrest you. Well, that would be unlawful arrest, because the simple I have a right to remain silent means I don't have to tell you my name. You can't arrest me for expressing my rights. It's unlawful. That's why you do investigations. And it actually says that they can't do that until they take you back to their designated place, i.e. the police station. They're only allowed to ask you questions back at the police station, and only if they believe and have sufficient reason to believe you've committed a crime. They can't do it for the point of creating a business contract, because that's what they're trying to do. So this is a great document. Our rights under the law. You have a right to move about freely without hindrance. Some criminal codes there. I'm going to make all these documents available for those who request them. I'm going to move on to my document now. Well, nearly now. Here is a Supreme Court ruling, the DPP versus Hamilton. If you haven't got a copy of this one, I suggest you grab it, because it's all about a guy who falsely arrested someone. Again, I can give you a copy, but you can find this online as well. Just punch this information up in here. It will come in under the OSLIT sign. Having case law is very, very important, because when you get to court, it's no point just saying it. You need to put a copy on the desk. You need to put it to the magistrate and everyone to say, here you go, there's the case law, straight there and then. You've got to make these submissions with a copy of the case. It's really important. You can't just quote it. It doesn't mean anything if you just quote it. So get a nice little collection of documents in your file, because you're going to need them, because their solicitors and lawyers are much more prepared than you are, but they're not going to be aware of some of the stuff you're going to throw at them. So make sure that you're always prepared. Here's an interesting one for those of you who aren't aware, because if you've got a fine in Victoria for speeding or whatever, they want you to pay Fines Victoria. Now, Fines Victoria is not registered with the government. It's actually registered by a mate of mine just down the road. When he found out that Fines Victoria didn't exist, he registered it. They are now threatening him to try and get this name back, because they understand that they're committing fraud all the way through. And those of you who know Zev has registered a whole lot of names as well. And ATSIC here are trying to get the names back from Zev. So Wayne, who owns this, is talking to Zev, so he's not getting bullied. But even if he was to relinquish this, any fines that have been made to pay to Fines Victoria are not payable. They can't be enforced. So rather than just blindly pay a bill, investigate who you're paying. It's really important, because they may not even be legal. And all the documents that say pay fines Victoria, there's no ABN. Remember, under the Consumer Act law, was it Corporations Act law, they have to put it on. Otherwise, they're in breach of Section 153 of the Act, Corporations Act. Okay, where are we at? What's this one? Department of Justice and Safety. This is here in Victoria. It'll be pretty much the same in all of the other states. You'll find the equivalent. And it's good for you to do this process of looking these up. ABN lookup, punch in Department of Justice, and it's got an ABN number. It's a business. It is a business. And as you go down the trading names, look at all of the names, the trading names of that business. Infringement Management Enforcement Services. The Sheriff's Office. Ooh, sheriffs are supposed to work for the people. Well, they're not. They're working for a private corporation. And who's the Department of Justice and Community Safety? Who's that business aligned with? Look when it was set up. 1st of November, 1999. All part of that big mystery that happened. They're all connected. They're all owned by the same people. To believe that all of these entities were all registered on this day by different people, no. They were all done in the middle of the night. Trading name, Department of Justice, Sheriff's Office, Coroner's Office. Why would the Coroner's Office? Well, there's money to be made out of people dying. That's why. Simple. So births, deaths, and marriages. Again, see, we're controlling them from the time they're born. We register them, we create that, we control them through the justice system all the way through. And we know that Vic Police was set up on the same day by the same people. Who else have we got? Consumer Affairs, business affairs, interesting. VCAT, so they can tell people what to do with land. Road Safety Enforcement. Corrections Victoria. Oh, we run the police, we run the prisons as well. All the way through, we're making money out of it. Gambling, liquor, racing, all owned the Office of Public Prosecutions. Not the Queen. They don't represent the Queen. The Office of Public Prosecutions represents this corporation. We're exposing the fraud. County Court, County Magistrates Court, all our court systems. So the police, the court systems, everything, they're all connected. Now, if you're sitting in a court system and you've been able to trace all of these corporations back to the one entity, i.e. the United Nations or ultimately the Vatican owns the bar, Temple Bar. So any magistrate takes an oath to the bar. He can't sit on any case because he's connected. He should recuse himself straight away. Even the Supreme Court. All of our courts are all owned by the same corporation. That's the depth of the corruption that's going on here. The Supreme Court swallowed up the common law. You can still file a common law case in the Supreme Court, but you look at the difficulty you have in running it because they don't want it, because they don't make money. They try to control it because it's being run by a corporation. Now, can you imagine the common law courts that we're being set up being taken over and run by a corporate entity that wants to make money out of it? So, okay. So what rights do they have? And who's the Magistrates Court? Well, it's a private corporation. Magistrates Court only deals in administrative issues. It's an administrative court. It deals with non-living entities and contracts. It can't deal with the living man. So when you stand in a court and say that you're the living man, you're in trouble because they can't deal with you. So what do? They either just, kick you out of the court and then they go ex parte. So there must be a way that you have to deal with the magistrate's court where you put them in their place. And we'll get to that in a minute. Magistrate's court is a bluff. There's two things. The actual space, the actual room, the magistrate's court, is set up by legislation. It governs the space and the running of the space, but it doesn't govern who rules over that space. There's been no tender that's gone up for it. The capital lettered magistrate's court runs it. So what's supposed to be a people's space is being run by a private corporation for the purposes of profit. So what are their rights? Only the rights that you give them. They can run a claim against two non-living entities having a contractual dispute. Magistrate's court can do that quite happily. But you are not a non-living entity, and you need to stand up and say, you have no jurisdiction over me. And you force the police to say, are you making a claim against a fictitious, non-living trust account, or are you making a claim against me, the living man or woman? I need to know that before this matter can proceed. Well, they're not going to say it's against the living man because they know they can't. They've got no authority. So they're going to try and bullshit and bluster. And you stick to it. And you say the matter can't proceed until that has been determined. And you do this in the paperwork that we're going to hit them with, which I'll get to in a moment. So what are their rights? Only what you give them. So how do we deal? Let's go to back to my running sheet here. How do we deal with the system when we're accused or fined or something like that? How do we deal with it? Well, quite simply, we challenge everything. We challenge their name. We challenge their authority. All the things that I was talking before about, where do you get your authority from if your organisation was only instigated in 1999 as a private business? Where do you get your authority over the 1986 Act? Who do you get it from? Oh, well, we get it from the Parliament of Victoria. Really? Do you have that piece of paper? If they can't provide the piece of paper, they can't make the claim, they can't substantiate the claim. And if they did have a piece of paper from the Parliament of Victoria, whatever it was, which was set up on the same day, you'd say, well, where did it get its authority from? Who gave it the authority? If you can't provide the evidence, you can't substantiate the claim. So this is where we put it back on them. We challenge them for everything. We challenge them to prove that it's a motor vehicle. Where's your evidence? Okay, you say it's a motor vehicle. Okay, what corporation is it registered with? What trade was it carrying on at the moment you stopped it? What was it transporting? What was it doing? Well, you can't prove it. Well, then you can't say, you're just saying it's a motor vehicle, but you've got nothing to substantiate your claim. We question them on everything. We challenge them on everything. You keep saying was driving. Well, who am I employed by? Where's the employment record? There's no employment record of me being employed by the owner of that car for the purposes of being a driver. Do you have a tax return for me as a driver? No, nothing. So you've just got an opinion. You're creating a misnomer for the purpose of conversion to create and coerce business. Okay, for an infringement. Okay, what is a driver? Well, we've gone through that. And we're going to use an example of being an unregistered car. We've gone through that. Driving whilst disqualified. Well, you don't need a license to travel. I've got some more documents I'll go through. So I'm just going to plow through things here because there's so much before I get it. we'll assume that you're following one of the scripts and you're actually just gathering evidence on an unlawful detention. Let's say that they don't arrest you and you never show your driver's license or do that, and they just issue you an infringement notice. Okay, so what authority do they have? Let's have a little look here. Now, this is a letter that I have given to police as a courtesy, asking who they serve. And I know who they serve. In their Victoria Police Act, now really get a distinction, and this will be the same for all states. The difference between Victoria Police in lowercase letters and Victoria Police in uppercase letters. They are two totally separate, non-connected things. Under the Victorian Police Act, the role of the Victorian Police is to serve the Victorian community and uphold the law. Now, it's not to uphold legislation, it's to uphold the law. And who is the Victorian community? It's not defined anywhere. This could be a period of time. It could be the Victorian era. It doesn't state that it serves the people of the land known as Victoria. So that leaves it totally open. And you challenge them on that. Say, well, yes, but where's your proof and definition of who the Victorian community is? Don't know. Do you uphold the law? Yes. Nothing about upholding legislation. Okay. I'm going to move through and pull these bits and pieces out. They take an oath. They swear to Almighty God, or does some solemnly and sincerely affirm, they will truly serve our sovereign lady, the Queen. Well, hang on a minute. Just up here, they said they were going to serve the Victorian community. You can't have two masters. You either serve the Victorian community or you serve our sovereign lady, the Queen. Now, nowhere is there any definition of who this is. And in fact, the Queen Elizabeth has been taken out of Victorian legislation. So is this the Queen of Australia? Well, the Queen of Australia is a name that's owned by a company called Peckamaroo. So who do they serve? They won't know. You challenge the police under cross-examination. Well, which do you serve? Victorian community or these, neither of which you can give a definition for anywhere in writing as to who you serve. So we challenge them all the time on that. And here, discharge all the duties legally imposed according to law. So there's a definition between the two. Duties legally imposed. Imposed means against your will. So what they're doing is they're doing things against their will that are to do with legalities, the legal system, but they must do them according to law. So understanding their oath means you're going to pull them to shreds when you cross-examine them. Okay, and I go into that a little bit in this letter. Where is Victoria? Doesn't say the state of Victoria. It's not clearly defined in any legislation. So Victoria Police could be a girl. Police Force of Victoria is constituted by a body known as Victoria Police. Well, that's sort of gobbledygook. It's a special body under Section 6.1 of the Public Administration Act, okay? Public Administration. Public Administration Act. What are special bodies? 1K, Victoria Police. It goes around in circles. Circular logic. It's a special, Victoria Police is a special body, is Victoria Police. It's got no definition. It's simply gobbledygook. The Police Force of Victoria, there's no such legal entity. There's only Police Department Vic. Now, this is a legal document. So the police force of Victoria has no existence whatsoever, because all it is a body established by this section known as Victoria Police in lower letters. What does that mean? It means that Victoria Police has absolutely no authority in the Victoria Police Act. Okay, it's got no authority. Okay. And we go into a little bit of this. I go into the capital letters, Justinian Code, the Corpus Juris Civilis. I suggest you read that up a little bit. And it only applies to citizens. And the legal name, Dog Latin, there's a bit of information there for you. Common law of England is to be enforced. Swore an oath to act as a police officer. That's in lowercase letters, which is an indication of common law, as is Victoria Police. To uphold the common law of the people. That's what they swore to do. Every constable shall have powers and privileges and be liable to all such duties as any constable duly appointed now has or hereafter may have earlier by the common law or by virtue of any act of parliament now. Well, if it's this or this, which one overrides the other? It has to be common law overrides an act of parliament. And it comes under their duties. The Victoria Police Act, section 51. A police officer who has taken and subscribed the oath or made and subscribed the affirmation has A, the duties and powers of a constable at common law, and any duties and powers imposed on a police officer by or under this or any other act or by under any subordinate instrument. Well, that tells you that all of this is subordinate to that. Common law overrides all of that. And these are duties imposed against his will by any act. So that's what he's agreed to. Got two masters, again. Police Regulations Act. Every constable that's up here, A, not an officer. Officer is different. A constable and an officer. See that? Constable here, police officer there. There's two different hats they wear. Every constable shall have such powers and privileges and be liable to all such duties as any constable duly appointed now has or may have had by common law or by virtue of any act of parliament. Again, one has to override the other, and common law overrides acts of parliament. And here's separate, and any member of the police force of higher rank. So that is separate to that. We really got to understand the difference. Okay, and I'll pull it apart a little bit more here. The oaths, the Queen, I'll pull all of that apart. So here we go. Police Department Vic, trading as Victoria Police, has absolutely no authority over a living being other than if that living being specifically contracts with it. So they're trying to create a contract. They're trying to force a contract when they want you to hand over the driver's license. If you do that, you've contracted. Here we go. Car swerving on the road. This is give you an indication of what power they have. You have no power to stop a speeding car. Sorry, you have the power to stop a speeding car that you believe may cause an action endangering life. So you cause them over. But once that car has been pulled over, your power and authority is voided. You have no power or authority to serve an infringement notice. You may observe a car go through a stop sign, a traffic light, and be of the belief this was a dangerous act that potentially could have resulted in harm or damage through an accident, but you only have power to prevent such an offence, not to pull them over and issue an infringement notice after the alleged offence. Because that's what it says up here. General functions of Victoria Police. The functions of Victoria Police include, and remember, anything that is included excludes everything that's not written. So the only functions the common law constable has are preserving the peace, protecting life and property, preventing the commission of offences, detecting and apprehending offenders, and helping those in need of assistance. That's the only functions that they have. Common law privilege against self-incrimination entitles a person to refuse to answer any question or produce any document if the answer or the production would tend to incriminate the person. You are not obliged to tell them your name or to produce a driver license because it could incriminate you. Simple. This privilege against self-incrimination is a privilege against self-exposure to a civil or administrative penalty, including any money penalty which might be imposed by a court or an administrative authority. It's pretty simple. You've just got to throw it back at them. I go into impose, to bring about by force. They're hired guns and they're personally accountable. And we must hold them to that. You see, the Public Administration Act, the Act doesn't apply to certain persons. Well, here we had the Public Administration Act saying that the police, Victoria Police, was a special party, was a Victoria Police. Now it doesn't apply except to the extent that the provision of this Act otherwise expressly provides. This Act does not apply to a person in his or capacity as a police officer. So the Public Administration Act, which says that the Victoria Police is a special body under the Act, actually doesn't apply to them at all. Nowhere, because they're a private corporation. And see, that's where you find it. You find, oh, you think, oh, the Victoria Police Act. No, 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 it doesn't apply. They're not what they say they are. So then you've got actions that you can take here against the police for a tort, which is a common law wrongdoing. And it basically says that if you do something wrong, that they're not going to back you up. You're on your own. The state is not liable for a police tort. They've got the government's not going to pay it. We've got examples of that. So we're telling the coppers, mate, you are 100% personally liable for everything that you do. We cite a few other things. And you'll be personally accountable. So then I go into a little bit of the history so that you can understand how all of this came about. We go back to, back to 500 and something or other in here, I think, with the 529 with the Justinian Code when it first came in. We go into the Corpus Juris Civilis, which is where Roman law first started. Then we get into the time of the Plantagenets. The Catholics controlled everything. The Vatican controlled everything. Really suggest you read this because this is where the whole bullshit about the Magna Carta came about, but more importantly, the Unum Sanctum. So have a read of that document to give you an idea of what was going on with the Vatican. They were controlling everything and still do, because this goes right through to the time of Queen Elizabeth's coronation, because she was, and still is, Catholic. So all of that history there is well worth reading, because that's where you're going to understand what's really been going on with the Vatican and how they control everything. City of London, Washington, D.C. So there's some good history in that document, which I'm going to leave for you to get access to. So the next one that comes up is then, are police employees? Now, there was a case recently where the Victorian government wiped their hands of the police, said, we don't employ you, you're subcontracted out, you're subbies. So they left them hanging for dry, and the police didn't wake up that and go, wait a minute, we're not being protected. The state denies duty of care to injured police. The government denies that Mr. Boyer, who was a policeman, was employed by the government, that at all material times he was executing independent duties cast upon him by reason of his oath taken under the police regulations. Okay, they're acting independently. They're not even acting for, they're acting for the interests of the government, but they're hired guns. Okay, recommend that you have a read of that document as well. And I will make all of these available at some point. I just want to get through all of this. Okay, so let's have a look at a few situations now in terms of some invoices and things like that. Now, where I'll put this here. Here we go. No, that's not the one. Yes, it is. So here's one from Victoria Police, and we're just going to go through because at some point you're probably going to get some sort of infringement notice or something like that. So I have done a video on this, but I want to quickly go through this to bring people up to speed. Look, the first thing on the page is this logo, this trademark. This is a Catholic crown. It belongs to the Vatican. These are the floral leaves of the Lex Fori, Roman civil law. Of course, the inverted pentagram is a satanic symbol. The Vatican worships Lucifer, the light, the Lord of the light. And in the middle here is the Rothschild's symbol of money. So there's the bank, Vatican, 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 Satanism. That's what they all operate under. They all went to the badge. Now, here we go. Capital letter. It's dog Latin. You might be able to read it as English, but it's not English. It's counterfeit and criminal. To the operator. Well, the operator is the person who supposedly owns the vehicle, not necessarily the person who was driving it. Offence detected by a road safety camera. So here we've got no living witnesses. That's what this says. There's no witness to this. So how can there be an infringement? No, there's been no infringement. There's only an allegation. Nothing's been proven. Your obligation number. No, I have no obligation. It's your obligation number, not mine. You can't say that I have an obligation to this. You're trying to create contract. Okay, that's what that's trying to do, trying to create contract. There's no ABN. Remember we said earlier, Section 153 of the Corporations Act says that there must be an ABN. And I've seen no exemption to this private corporation. So this document has no legal status, no legal status. This is a non-living entity. So you've got one non-living entity making a claim against another non-living entity. They're trying to force it on you. There has been no offence proven. It's purely an allegation at this stage that you have breached a statutory legislation. Well, not that you have, but a name on paper. Now, how can a name on paper drive a motor vehicle? It can only happen in the world of fiction. Okay, so this is all fiction. Statutory legislation requires consent. Well, here they are, they're quoting the road safety rules. When did Victoria Police get authority over the road safety rules? Because they came into existence in 1999, and the road safety rules of 2017, well, they might have, but they're quoting the Road Safety Act as well. Who is you? Who is you? You is a plural, okay? So what we're doing is we question. If we get something like this, we write a letter back with a conditional acceptance, and we ask that a document be provided in English and in English only. We ask that the claimant make it clear, are they claiming against the trust account or against the living woman in this case? They must define that. We tell them that there's no offence been committed, nothing's been proven in a competent court. So we challenge them on every single aspect of this. Okay, I'm just going to bring up a few more of these, and we'll get a few from different states as well. I just want to bring you that so you can see it a bit clearer. Okay, Catholic crown, and you'll find that that's the St. Edward's crown, inverted pentagram, a call, Rothschilds, the Lex Fori, Reeves. Everything they do is in symbols. That's why your flag that we created right back at the beginning, your Baranda, your coat of arms is so important, because your coat of arms, when you put it up in the top right, left-hand side here, everything comes under you. You are not subservient to this at all. You are your own authority. There's some information about the pentagram. It's a 5-pointed star used as an important magic symbol. Faces either 3 points up or 3 points down. If up, generally in witchcraft, it symbolises human spirituality. Okay, often a human being is sketched into the pentagram with arms stretched forward. You might remember the image of Da Vinci that he did of the human. But if it's pointed downward, it's black magic. It's of darkness and bestiality. Okay, well, what does that tell you about the police force in the Vatican if they are using that symbol and they know it? A downward or inverted pentagram is used for a second-degree initiate. Okay, so the police are literally second-degree initiates. And this is what you throw at them when they're on the stand. Are you aware of this? Yes or no? No, don't know anything about it. Well, would it be strange to you that your employers would choose such a symbol knowing that that's what it is? And are you happy to still be sitting under that symbol knowing that that's what it means? Make them as uncomfortable as possible when they're in the witness box. Okay, here's another one. Penalty reminder notice. Now, there's no penalty been imposed yet. You cannot have a penalty before it's been determined in a proper competent court. So this is a fraudulent document. Again, they're doing all the obligations and fines, numbers, penalty reminder. There is no penalty. Again, there's no ABN. We call them out on all the lies. We say, no, I want this document in English and I want it lawful. On a lawful document. This is an offer of contract. And as it's written at the moment, I don't understand it. And it's not signed by a living being because they're not trying to contract to a living being. So it's a non-living entity trying to contract with another living entity. So you call them on that and you say, well, if that's what you're saying, where is your contract to make your claim? But first you have to make it clear, who are you trying to contract with? The non-living entity, the trust account, or the living man or woman? So you're putting them on the spot. And if they don't tell you, you say to them, it will be taken that if you do not clarify to the contrary, that your organisation is attempting to contract with the non-living trust account, unless you rebut that. You put it to them, you give them so many days to say it, and if they don't rebut it, they've just agreed that actually it's got nothing to do with you. It's to do with the trust account. You back them into corners. Okay. It's this one. Here's another good one. Undertaking of bail. Now it reads as English, but it's not English. Capital letters are not English. Accused copy. Who's the accused? Again, capital lettered. It's a non-living entity. It's not a living person. Not a living entity. The accused is not a living entity. Anything and everything in a box has nothing to do with the rest of the instrument. It's separated off from it. So everything that's there has nothing to do with the rest of this. This is part of the deception. Here, under undertaking, herself, there's no name to whom the document pertains. Signed by a non-living entity. That's a signature, non-living entity. No signature other than John Elliott. Therefore, there is no undertaking of bail. There is the person this undertaking is, there's no signature from them. There's no agreement. There's another one that comes up, which is a facts sheet. Often you will be issued with a facts sheet, in capital letters, F-A-C-T-S sheet. You challenge it straight away. It is not fact, it is opinion. A fact is not a fact until it has been proven in a court. So when they send you the fact sheet with all the policemen telling you this, he's trying to get you to just admit it so it gets submitted as facts. Then you can't challenge it. So you challenge it straight away. Say, this is not a fact sheet, it's an opinion sheet. And I challenge all aspects of this, and it must not be admitted as evidence. Okay, we're going to eliminate all their paperwork by saying that it's criminal, counterfeit, whatever it is. We're going to get all of their so-called paperwork struck out by giving them advance notice saying, I want it in English, because all court documents must be in English and only English. So we make that demand of them. They're going to take their power away that they think they have by saying, no, you have no power. I'm going to bring this one up, quick one for you to have a look at. It's a bit small, but it's on Wikipedia for what it's worth. But it says a driver's license or driver license is required in Australia. Well, where's Australia? It's Norfolk Island. Before a person is permitted to drive a motor vehicle. See, when you read that without really knowing what it says, it basically says that if you're a person, you need to be permitted to drive a motor vehicle on Norfolk Island for commerce, for the purposes of commerce, not for anything else. So you don't need to register your car. You don't need a driver license if you're just driving down to the shop to get, if you're just traveling down to the shop, to get milk. There are key elements that are involved to require car registration, to require driver license, to require to wear a mask. It's a directive, it's not a law. To require you to only stay within 5 kilometres of your house is a prison. It's a deprivation of liberty. It's unlawful. If you go to an outdoor protest, in actual fact, you are obliged to protest bad government. And you claim that it's bad government, they have to prove it's good government, which means they would have to prove that COVID virus actually exists. And we know it doesn't. We challenge them on every single point because at the end of the day, we only have to get 1 point. We only have to get 1 point in our favour, and they haven't fully complied with the claim. So we've just got to be smart. We've got to really, really be smart. Okay. I'm just filing through these now. Again, here we've got the accused. This is a criminal and counterfeit instrument because it uses dog Latin. Charge sheet. There cannot be a charge because there's been no offence proven. So you rebut this and you say there cannot be a charge. There is no offence proven. Anything that's in a box does not belong to the rest of the piece of paper. The accused. No, I'm not the accused. I've got a piece of paper, a case going against them where they use 9 different variations of my name. And in their own sheet where they do a leap thing, they only have 2 aliases. And that just happens to be the 2 aliases of capital lettered names with my surname first as opposed to my surname last. They're the only 2 ones. So everything else under all of those other names cannot be admitted as evidence. I am not the accused. The accused is not listed on that list of names that they go to. So this does not apply to me. Doesn't apply to me at all. Act or regulation. It's an act which equals a pretense. You should go to court. Well, who's you? Summary offences require consent. There is no consent. So you mark up, what you do is you scan their documents, you mark it up like this, and you print it out and you send them back a letter, conditional letter, saying, if you can turn that all into English for me so I can read it, that would be nice. That would be really nice. The issuing of fines is outside the authority and the power of a constable. We went through that before. They are actually not permitted to do this. They're being told by their employees to do it, their employers to do it, against their will, and it's unlawful. But they're trying to create contract. They're acting as an employee of a private corporation and or as a private man. There's no allegation of any crime here. No crime has been committed, and statutory legislation requires consent. Where's the evidence of consent? Contract. So you throw it back at them. Okay. They put all these other paperworks in that they're obliged to do. Okay, we're ploughing through, folks, so I'm just going to quickly go through all of these invoices so that you can perhaps see anything else that's needed to be put in for your own stuff. So I've put in, I have no and am under no obligation. It's really important you say that. If you don't rebut it, you've accepted that you've got an obligation. I have no, and I'm under no obligation. No living witnesses. No, not a legal document. Victoria Police has no authority in any legislation and no authority on the land known as Terra Australis. No consent to the Vatican logo. The capital letter name, it's a non-living fictitious trust account using a misnomer to create conversion and fraudulently seek financial advantage by deception. You're calling them out on fraud, which is in the documents that we'll then file on the court. There has been a lack of due process. No penalty can be imposed until an alleged act has been proven in a Chapter 3 court. This is a complete abuse of process. It's unlawful. This criminal and counterfeit instrument, this offer to contract, is not understood and is declined. You're calling it out for what it is. Lack of due process. The officer in charge, an unnamed non-living entity. This is correspondence between a non-living entity and a non-living entity. And you, as the only living man or woman, can rule over that, and you will order that the matter be dismissed. Okay, which we'll get to when we get to remedies. But this is how we mark things up and we send it back to them. And you can go to town on the red pen. Absolutely go to the town on the red pen. And you ask them for please explain. You want further and better particulars. Okay, same sorts of things here. No living witness, all of that. Demand proof of who Fines Victoria is, if you're in Victoria. Nominate the driver. Now, this is an interesting one that's come up just recently, is there is no driver. If you have a vehicle by them that is registered to a corporation, you send back and you quite simply say that the so-called vehicle was not being used for commerce at the time. Therefore, there was no driver. There is no paid employee registered by my company as a driver. However, if you were the one who was in the car at the time, you say there was a living man or woman in possession at that time, and you give the living man's name. Not his address, don't have to do that. You just say this is the living man who has done that, because when they try to hit you with this, they want to fine the corporation like $3,000. But then you as a director, you simply fulfill your obligation and you say, well, there was no driver at that time. It was being used for private purposes, not for business purposes. Therefore, there was no driver in it. Now, your corporation is now off the hook because you've obliged. Now they have to try and chase it up against the living man or woman. And then we go down asking for more proof. At the time, no commerce or trade was occurring. There was no driver. Okay, this one's from, where are we now? Queensland or New South Wales? I think this is a New South Wales one. But the same things apply. Infringement notice. There has been no proof of an infringement. Photographic detection device offence. Well, so is there supposedly an offence hasn't been proven against a photograph? Here's an interesting one. State penalties enforcement. This is in italics. Italics are cursive and criminal. They are cursing you. You challenge them that. You say, I do not consent to being cursed. In English only. This is the Masonic image. Catholic crown. This is Queensland. We're in Queensland. The Roman Lex Fori. There it is. Catholic crown. This is the Maltese cross underneath, which is Catholic. Another crown inside there. No consent to the Vatican or their agents. No ABN, so it's not a legal document. Customer. No, I decline to be a customer of yours. If you don't rebut this, you have agreed to being their customer, which means you're in a contract with them. So you rebut that. You are not you. You're not a non-living estate. You say the claim should be withdrawn as there is no contract and it is criminal and counterfeit. It's an attempt at fraud. You cannot impose penalty without due process. Details of alleged offence. We've gone into some stuff here in terms of alleged speed. Well, they don't know what the speed is. And this photograph does not show speed. This photograph purely shows there's a car next to a fence at that time. There is no measurement of speed. It's not admissible to support speed. The image is not. Okay? A photo can only show place, not even accurate day and time, and indefinitely not speed, as that would require at least video. The road would have to be measured up so it could be determined and seen. Have to be video. So the photograph is not admissible. This is what I'm telling them, and saying, no, you've got video footage of so many other things. Why can't you have video to sustain this? It doesn't show what you claim it sustains. It's challenged. Here's another Queensland one. Infringement. No, there's been no infringement. So you decline that. Customer reference. No, I'm not a customer of yours, and I decline to be a customer of yours. Amount due. This is in capital letters. It's dog Latin. I can't read that. Queensland government. Where's the ABN? There's the logo. Okay, look at this. This logo is on this side of the page. This logo is on this side of the page. Why? Because that is under that. Here's italics again. They're cursing you. It's in lowercase here, infringement notice, but there's been no infringement. It's just an allegation. Driver license number. See, if you don't rebut the fact there that you weren't committing trade at the time, that's irrelevant. So you go, no, there was no trade or commerce happening at the time. Therefore, the driver license was not relevant. Now, I used to work as a production manager for an opera company, so I often used to have to drive the set to and from theatres. And for that purpose, because I work for the opera company, I needed a driver license. But I only needed it when I was driving the truck to and from the venue. When I got into my own car, that was irrelevant. Officer's signature, again, non-living, no name, number, not a real person. More of the same. No penalty. Penalty notice? No penalty can be issued until it's been proven in a Chapter 3 court. All it is an allegation of a breach of a non-consented statute. There's no consent to the Vatican. There's the Crown. There's the leaves again. There's the Rothschild thing in the middle. I mean, it's all about money. Pay now. Who's now? Who do they want to pay? It's all the things when you read them, don't read them as English. Penalty notice number. No, ignore that, rebut that. Offence date. There was no offence. Nothing's been proven. Penalty amount. Can't have a penalty until the offence has been proven in a court. This is all jumping the gun. It's unlawful, rebutted. Trying to cover all the states for you guys who might be listening from elsewhere so that you're familiar with what you see. Here's a Western Australian one. They call their Department of Justice. No, it's a Department of Money Making. Fines Enforcement Registry. Well, look at what we've got up here. We've got the two wreaths, got the Catholic crown again. Penalties and infringements notice. It's an offer to contract. So you demand they prove who they're wanting to contract with, the fictitious entity or the living man, and you can move on from there. All of this rebut, driver's license number, irrelevant, no trades going on. Vehicle registration number, that's fine. Offence description, no, there's been no offence, so this can't be put in because there's been no offence proven. If you don't rebut it, something as simple as that, offence description. If you don't rebut that there's been an offence, that is taken by tacit acquiescence that you have consented there was an offence. That's how they work. An alleged speed, where's the proof? Where's the video footage? Now you can send that to the Registrar General with a direction and instruction to pay. because they're the trustee. So if you want to, one of your ways of dealing with this is to say, right, I'm just going to accept the fact that this non-living entity is the one they're after, because all of this money is taken out of that account anyway. They try to get you for double dipping. So if you want to resolve this matter, you can just send this to the Registrar General in your state with a direction and instruction for them to pay, as they are the trustee, and there's conditions that they do that. So if the police come back at you and the courts come back at you, you say, well, I forwarded on to the trustee to pay it. You need to be chasing up the Governor General, not the Governor General, the Registrar General. So there's different ways in which you can deal with this, depending on what you want to do. Are your details correct? Well, the whole thing is a fraud. Okay, prosecution notice. Look, it's in a box. It's got nothing to do with the rest of the piece of paper. Italics, criminal procedure regulations, all of this has nothing to do with this piece of paper. Anything and everything contained in a box is separate and not related to the rest of the instrument. Therefore, the instrument does not make sense. West Australian Police Force, they're a corporation. Where's the contract? Person issuing this notion. Well, a person is a fiction. So you've got a fiction, even though he's signed it, you've got a fiction making a claim of prosecution against another fiction. Fiction, 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 non-living. You get them, you force them to say that they are making a claim against that fictitious entity, not the living man. If they have the living man, they must use your proper common law name. Same thing here. Prosecution notice. Unsigned and unwitnessed by a living man or woman. It's not witnessed. Okay, I rebut any and all authority. We've already told them that. There's no ABN. It's cursive. Failure to comply with a direction under the emergency management. It's a direction. It's not a law. Emergency Management Act. It's an act. It's not the law. And this is all in capital letters. It's not readable as English. It's sign language. Sign language. No ABN. Criminal and counterfeit. That's what it tells you. Whenever you use this, it's criminal and counterfeit. A state of emergency. Well, a state is something that is emotional state that you're in. A state only exists on a piece of paper. It was declared on a piece of paper. COVID is in capital letters. It's a sign. It's not a word. It's not readable. It's an act, pretense. Emergency Management Act. Look at it. It's in italics. It's cursing you. Commissioner of Police made a number of directions. Since when does the Commissioner of Police have the authority to make directions on what's supposedly a medical issue? And since when do directions must be complied with? Directions are not law. That's false, and it's in capital letters. Okay, it's in capital letters, so it's not English. These directions be complied with. Directions are not law. And the Commissioner of Police is a non-living entity. Okay, so that's one for Western Australia. Cursive is an act. And it's unsigned. It's unsigned. What do we got? Okay, so now we're going to go into the next part of our play, which I think I've lost it. Where is it? ahead here. So we're going to go into our, how do we respond? How do we respond with them now? What do we do? Well, the first thing you can do is you can send it back, unopened, return to sender, non-living corporate entity, not recognised as being at this address. No consent equals no contract. You could also put on there deceased. Addressee is deceased, which it is. That's a deceased estate. Addressee is deceased. Now, all that's going to happen when you do this is they're just going to send you back another one with increased costs. Okay, but you've said there's no one there. They have to act accordingly, but they're just going to keep bullshitting and bluffing and doing whatever. If it says, if not claimed, you put not claimed. Return to sender, no consent, no contract. Non-living deceased estate, not recognised at this address. Try Ian Ierson, the Registrar General. Okay, so what you're saying is this needs to go to the trustee. If that's who this entity is a trust account, he's the trustee in that state, so send it to him. Okay. Inevitably, they are going to just keep bombarding you with paper and then do all of that. But you never know. You might be lucky enough to bullshit them away by telling them the truth. Return to sender. Deceased estate cannot open envelopes. Deceased estate cannot open envelopes. So you're telling them, guys, you know, get real. Send it to him. Here's a one for an undertaking of bail. Okay, so they've arrested you. This is actually one for me. Look, accused. I'm not the accused, and that's not my name. That is the name that I told him. That's how I identified myself out. So that's all he had. Everything here is written in boxes. Resides at. So he's creating joinder. And these are my supposed terms of this undertaking of bail. Now, I can't read this. This isn't English. So this form's not in English. And I told them 3 times, I do not understand the document. Do not understand it. Okay, I told them that's not me. So what did I do? He said, sign here. That's not my signature. But I wrote here, V coactus. I scribbled under sufferance so that they would release me from their unlawful detention. And this particular sergeant, who was the one who did this, admitted that he had fraudulently sent me a check for $403,000 for a civil matter in a police envelope. That's how stupid he was. And he'll be coping for that, but that's another one. So if you are getting a bail thing, say to them 3 times, I do not understand it. Then pick it up and scribble or write V coactus, and they'll let you go. That bail notice is not enforceable. The terms of that bail are not enforceable. Okay. Now, here is a situation where we're now getting to what do we send to the court. Now, I had already sent a notice to the police wanting a summary conference because I raised a whole lot of issues and a whole lot of paperwork that they hadn't got to, and they had not responded. Therefore, I used the Magistrates Court Criminal Procedure Rules and their overriding objectives so that the court would intervene and actively manage the case by ordering the summary conference. The court did not do that. So they're in breach of their own legislation. As soon as practical, to address the issues raised by the applicant in previous notices of motion, notices of mistake, and other instruments filed with the court. So I had filed a whole lot of issues to be dealt with by the court because they had refused a summary case conference, and I said that magistrates court must now step in, and they didn't do it. And this is why the matter has now been lifted up to the county court in front of a judge. Okay, was served with notices for complete disclosure, notice of mistake, request, did not respond, no response. Okay, so you can do that to force things to happen. Okay. Because I have served invoices on the police and they have not responded, I can pass a judgment. I am my own authority. And so I rule the matter is dismissed. This judgment is made ex dubito justitiae based on the following. So I give all of the following. I give the rulings, the reasons for the ruling. All the way through there. Unlawfully detained the claimant, illegally did that. And that the fees, that they were served an invoice. They were given time to do that. They did not do it. It's made no payment, no contact to make arrangements for payment. The reasons for the judgment. I go into all of the reasons of the judgment. Considerations, entitlement to enrichment, and here's the order. Following orders are made. Judgment for the claimant on the claim for the total sum of $403,000, etc., being for the principal claim of $51,000 plus the interest. It's been ruled on by my court, which has the same legal standing as their magistrate's court. Now that's been served on the judgment. It's been served left, right, and centre. You want to hit them with paperwork. Here's a witness summons form. I subpoenaed myself as a witness in my living man name. And the silly magistrate sent back saying, you are subpoenaing yourself as a witness. And in doing that, she agreed that I am the living man. Because you can see, this is the person who was charged. So I subpoenaed this witness. The registrar created joinder and said that I am this. So they acknowledged that I am the living man, and they also acknowledged that they were part of the fraud. Okay, this is how you track them down. You trap them and you trap them and you trap them because they're not smart enough to realise what you're doing. Now, what other documents can you serve on them? You can reserve a request for better and further particulars. You make a notice of a request for better further particulars. Again, it's filed in my court. What am I asking for? Any and all documents pertaining to the registration of the birth of the living being. Any and all documents pertaining to the creation of the birth certificate of the entity. And you've got to send it to me because I'm wanting them to prove who they are accusing. This one or this one. And they never sent them. So they're withholding evidence. So they can't then bring forward a birth certificate as evidence of who I am because they've been asked to supply it and they haven't. So when they're put on the stand and asked to prove who I am, they can't come forward with a birth certificate. Won't be admissible. Here's another one. I sent them a second one because I had some more thoughts. I want them to provide who is the complainant, who's the prosecutor. because there's no name. The division under which the matter's to be heard, because they're trying to put it under criminal, or they put it under criminal, and in fact it wasn't criminal because the police officer admitted it wasn't criminal. He said it's traffic. So why did they file it under criminal in the first place? Because it's a fraud. And they were told to give the crimes pursuant to the Crimes Act, which they never came back with. Proof that the magistrate's court has any claim of jurisdiction or authority over the person. Proof that the court has any claim or jurisdiction over the living man. A full and complete brief. We hit them for prove everything. Full names, ranks, numbers of the police officers who executed an arrest warrant. We want all of that information, thanks. Sworn copy of the arrest warrant was not provided. How can you know what you're dealing with if they're not giving you the documents? So you create a paper trail, so when you go to the court, say, they're not playing the game fair. Matter can't be heard. We're doing everything by their rules in their playpen. Here was the original request for the summary case conference. No response. Now we get into some fun ones. Notice of mistake. What we are doing is we're going to tell the court that they have made some mistakes here, that the court and the police have made mistakes and they need to be amended and corrected. So we give a short description. Surety for the legal name, it's a notice of mistake in the interests of diplomacy and goodwill, outlining mistakes made by the magistrate, the registrar, etc., the informant. And whenever I'm talking about these people, you'll see that I either put their name in brackets or I put it in quotation marks. And I tend to only use capital letters when it's in their terminologies. So I've said that this happened. In the alternative, the magistrate, the registrar, and other court employees are personally complicit. So if they don't correct the mistake, okay, if they don't correct the mistake, they are complicit in the fraud. Crimes Act, Section 82. So I've now raised the issue of fraud in the matter, which must be addressed. You can't bring up the issue of fraud halfway through the case. You have to do it beforehand. So what have I said? The current's listed. It should be dismissed because they can't agree who the accused is. They have no jurisdiction over a diplomat. They're not authorised to arrest or charge a diplomat. There's no consent. Diplomat has immunity to appear in court. No consent. No consent. These are all mistakes that you're raising, which must be addressed. You have a right to speak to them and they need to be corrected because they are mistakes. For instance, in the listing of it, you'll see here, they've put the accused before the informant. Now, whoever's name is first is the person who is making the claim. I'm certainly not making a claim in the court. They're making the claim. They need to be first. So why have they put my name first or this name first? Because whoever makes the claim pays. This is a total way of them not having to pay, and then they don't have to pay costs because they're the defendant. I have to prove myself innocent, which is totally the opposite. So you force them to change that around. No, that's not correct. If they don't change it, then they're complicit in the fraud. So we've listed all of those things down through here. Quite a lengthy document. Pleadings and particulars. We give all the pleadings and the particulars. Haven't committed a crime nor been accused of a crime. Go through the whole thing, point by point by point. These are all the mistakes that they need to correct. Charge must state the offence that the accused is alleged to have committed and contain the particulars in ordinary language that are necessary to give reasonable information as to the nature of the charge. Ordinary language is English. The charge is not in ordinary language. It's not in English. All court papers must be written in English only. All court documents that have any capitalised words are written in 2 different languages. Dog Latin has no jurisdiction with other written texts such as English. Okay, so we've given all of these examples that they need to correct. All right, so that's a as you can see, it's quite a lengthy document, but we're pointing out all the mistakes that need to be corrected before the matter can be heard. This is now up before the county court. And there's a second one as well. One of the things that I requested of the copper was a DNA sample from an independent forensic laboratory confirming who the so-called accused was. You know, if you're up for murder, they want a DNA sample of you. That's what they used for identity. Well, if they can't provide a DNA sample, guess who can? I can. So when they can't identify who the living man is, I've got DNA sample from an independent person, independent organisation, which supports my case that who I am. Okay, so we're using all of their systems against them. Okay, this is a notice of motion to dismiss proceedings. So what I'm saying to the court is, you know what, you should really dismiss this because the alleged accused, the so-called soul, or the soul, myself, and or this matter has been heard and ruled on previously because I've already filed a notice, an order to dismiss. I, as the living being, ordered the matter dismissed, overruled the court, and has been incorrectly identified. Okay, so I've served that. The matter be dismissed. Now this has to be dealt with in their system. They have to deal with it, which means all these issues of fraud are going to be brought to the surface. So what I'm doing is I am forcing them to deal with the fraud. And if they don't do it, it just goes up to the next court, which is where it is at the moment. Notice of attendance. So I served a witness summons on myself and gave a notice of attendance in response to the witness summons. Okay, so I'm clearly differentiating between the living man and the capital lettered entity. So you say, I will be attending. They call it a notice of appearance, but only ghosts make appearances. You make a notice of attendance and you're coming there in your capacity. In your capacity as the principal and beneficiary of the account. And I list all of these bits and pieces. And as I said, these documents are available if you want to use them in your own cases. But this is all bringing in Vic Roads and their fraud as well. So those real impacted and personal experienced crimes pursuant to, these are all of the crimes that I list they are guilty of. Not limited to, there's more. Which means every single one of these has to be addressed. All of those crimes must be addressed before they can hear the issue as to whether my car was registered or not. Because these are all indictable offences, and indictable offences outweigh statutory offences. So here we've got a notice of acceptance by acquiescence by silence. So this is a notice that's been served on all members and employees of the police department. And what's this one concerning? Yep, this is a fact that the notice to cease and desist for them stopping me in my car, there was no response. They had 7 days to dispute it, they didn't. There's been no response and therefore no disputing of that notice to cease, nor any part of its contents. So therefore, by tacit acquiescence, it stands as law and they accept the full acceptance of the ramifications of each of their failures to adhere to it. Okay, so this is a confirming that they've agreed. They've agreed to what I previously sent to them, and now I give them opportunities as to how it's all going to be paid, all going to be dealt with, etc. So we up the ante on them. We say, you're now locked into my contract, buddy. Whether you like it or not, tough. Now, other things that you can do. There was a direction for an interim injunction. Not a request, a direction. I tell them, this is what you're going to do. Because of what they've done, I serve an injunction on them. And it's quite lengthy, etc. Because they were going to try and impound my car. And so I filed an injunction, basically saying, this matter has not been determined. You can't take my car. It's now going up to the county court. So I filed an injunction in the magistrate's court. I also filed an injunction in the county court, same injunction, basically saying the same thing, that it was an unlawful action and they cannot take the vehicle. So it's all outlined there and it must be heard at the county court. So you've got options to file injunctions. Now, I also filed a direction for dismissal in the county court. So I've basically said this matter should be dismissed for all of these reasons. Okay, I haven't filed yet with them my order of dismissal on this matter because I'm giving the court the opportunity to do it first. Now, if the court doesn't dismiss it, then they are complicit in the fraud. Okay. Now, what have I got here? These are just some more notes. If you're interested, I've got more notes on how to deal with infringement notices, etc., which are listed there. These are all the things that you'll find potentially wrong with all of those. And I've got a couple of those that relate to different states that you're quite happy to look at. Now, just very conscious of the time. Okay, I've got three more documents to show you. These are really important. These are the legal maxims and short explanations of them. It's really important that you get your head around this Latin and what these things mean, because this is how they operate. And a lot of these are really important to know because maxims of law are things that they have to follow. For instance, this one is important. Actus non facit reum, nisi mens sit rea. An act does not make guilt unless the mind be guilty. Okay, so it's one thing to say, oh, he broke the window. It's another thing to say, yeah, but it was an accident. You know, he didn't do it deliberately. You have to have a guilty mind. So if you're in your car and you're traveling along without registration, without a license, and they say you've committed a crime, in your mind, you say, no, I am following and adhering to common law. Therefore, I cannot be guilty because my mind is not guilty. The existence of a criminal mind may be negated with the defences of mistake, accident, compulsion, consent, claim of right. They're all there. A lunatic may be found guilty of a crime. Okay, it's important that in our affidavit that we say, I am not a lunatic, I am not illiterate, I am not ignorant, I am not a pauper, because these are some of the loopholes that they'll try to get you on and claim you are. So you jump the gun and you make a statement that you're not those things, and then they're stuffed. So these legal maxims, really good to get your head around and throw them into documents whenever you get a nice opportunity to do that. Ex parte is one they use all the time. Outside the awareness of a party. No, you just kicked me out of the room so that you didn't have to deal with what I was putting forward to you. That doesn't give you, it gives room for injustice. Okay, it's not common in the adversarial system. Okay, so really understand what's going on and you're in a better position to be able to deal with it. Here's the one we used before. Inclusio unius est exclusio alterius. Where a statute, contract, or other legal document includes a list of items falling into a category, the inclusion of certain items on that list should be presumed to mean that any excluded items are intentionally outside the definition. And when you throw this at them, they have to oblige. Mandamus, we order. Well, you're the ruler of your kingdom, so you make mandamuses. You make orders. Okay, so there's a whole list of those. And I think we've got, there's another set here of legal maxims. They're a little bit shorter, but there's a whole list of them. And just look, even getting half a dozen of them in your head is a really great start. And the ones that are going to be in your advantage, for instance, this one, you can highlight. A person's right to do what is required for which no threat of legal punishment is a dissuasion. That's a good one. Where's another good one? There's misnomer, a wrong or incorrect name or term. It's wrong. A motor vehicle it's a wrong, it's an inaccurate term. It's a car, it's an automobile. It's only a motor vehicle if it's being used for commerce. So they're using an incorrect, wrong name. So you'd cite that, you would write misnomer. And normally with these, you write them in capital letters with a hyphen in between. That's the proper way to write Latin. But I've just got them down here. So that document is there as well. And the last one that I have for you is this. Here we've got a judgment and order served on the court. Judgment and order. I'm telling the court that the matter is over. Mandamus, I'm making the claim, I'm the thing. Cetera, it's written thing. There was all of these legal things. There it is in proper Latin. And it's being against the magistrate and the court where we declare our authority. We say the dead have no authority over the living. Personal right of action dies with the person. So in the person, we're talking about non-living entities, they have no right of action. So all of these claims made by a corporation, they're not sustainable. The breach of contract is not between living men or women. There's no meeting of the minds. The act does not constitute guilt unless done with guilty intention. This one's a great one. This matter is trivial and the law does not govern trifles. De minimis concurrat lex. You rule that walking across the road and getting charged with jaywalking or not wearing a mask is a trivial issue that the the law should not be bothered with. So you dismiss it. Now, what this means is the court, because it's impartial, must take the rulings of other courts. You are your own court. It must take this ruling. It means it can't dismiss it. If the opposition want to challenge it and appeal it, then they're welcome to do that. Okay, they're welcome to do that, but the court must honour this ruling. Okay, so a judgment and order to dismiss is a really good document. All right, now we've covered a lot of ground there today, and I hope that's been useful and helpful to you in terms of how to start looking at defending an issue in their court. In other words, you don't want to go to their court, you want to bombard them with paperwork and put them in a position where they go, oh shit, what are we going to do with this? This matter's been ruled on. Okay, we're throwing the microscope back on them, saying you'll make the allegation, you provide the evidence, and if you can't provide the evidence, then I'm taking action because you can't provide the evidence, so the matter's dismissed. I'm prepared to, as the principal of the trust account, let this claim move forward, provided you can provide a copy of the contract. If you can't provide a copy of the contract now, I'm dismissing it. Now, if they keep dragging it forward to court, quite simply you say, they were asked to provide a copy of the contract and they haven't provided it. And if they can't provide it now, right in this moment, then your honour should dismiss the matter because they can't substantiate their claim. What's he going to do? If he doesn't do it, he's showing a bias. We're creating the paperwork to block them from doing what they're doing, to take our power back. So hopefully I've given you a whole lot of stuff to consider and talk about. And then the next thing that we're going to look at is how do you file a claim in a common law court. Now, I'm going to have a break because that was 3 hours pretty much solid. I'm going to ask you whether you want to do it today or whether we can set it for another day. So I'm going to unmute you all now so that you can. So as I'm muting you, just let me know whether you want to have an hour's break and do the next one, which will be a lot quicker in many ways, or whether you want to leave it for another day.
Personally, I'm happy to come back in an hour if you're still up for it, because we're in the role for it and you are recording it as well. And then that way it'll give you plenty of quicker time to get the recording done so that, you know, we can rewatch it and get all those documents and everything. That's me.
Yeah, and I just got to work out where I can put all those documents for you to get to. That's going to be easy. I probably need to just tidy up a couple of them, take some names off it and do bits and pieces. I don't have a problem with my name being up there. I guess I'm pretty public now, so who cares?
The Dropbox is something you can just put a copy of the link to the Dropbox and then anyone can actually download the documents.
Yeah, that's probably the way to go. I've just got to find the time to do it. It shouldn't be too much of a problem, but seriously, I've got so many other things on my mind at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing is that it has been fairly full on, and you know, giving you the full credit for all the work that you've done to accomplish all the rest of it. You just still have the option of actually making for another day. I know some of us are really keen. I've been flat out trying to get ready to actually sit down for this meeting. So yeah.
No, look, I'm happy to keep going. I just need probably an hour to check that my kids are okay and get a bite to eat because I haven't had my breakfast yet because I've been up making sure that I've got all this together. But the next part I don't think will be as long because most of it will be based around stuff that we've already covered, and I can go into more specifics on certain documents to construct your claim with. But I think we've given you the foundation of what sort of documents you need in their system, which is very, very different when you're the one that's making the claim.
I think it'd be better to give people a chance to have a look at those documents, read through them, understand them before you go into and try and write their own documents.
Yeah, there's two sides to it. You'll have the video. I'll get the video processed and up as soon as possible, and that'll be probably by the end of today. If I've got the other one and we can go through it, we can then watch it at our leisure, and that sort of clears the slate for me for today, and I can get focused on some other stuff. So
where do you propose to post these links, or how do we get it?
We'll probably go through the Common Law Court website. I think that's probably the best thing to do. I'll check with Catherine and everybody else as to where they feel it should be, but I think we need to get the link out to all the groups.
Yep.
You know, to all of them. And look, some people may disagree with the way that I approach it, and I've got no problem with that. There's many roads to Rome. I've just found that my processes tend to be more encompassing both sides of not just fighting their system, but also underpinning common law principles.
It definitely looks like you've done.
I believe it's a good approach.
Yeah, I think I've covered all the bases. See, the way I look at it is shooting down their case before they even get a chance to put it forward, and forcing their system to act against the people who are making accusations about me, saying, "Oh, well, you know, you're not driving with a license. Oh, okay, you want to try and do that? Fine. Let's deal with the issue of you creating armed robbery, armed kidnap, fraud, because those matters have to be heard first."
Yeah, I've only actually been on with you guys for the last hour, but there was some amazing documents you just shared there. Some I've never even heard of, and to see your own stamps and everything that you've put on them, that's pretty cool.
Well, look, it's my pleasure. I constructed all of my documents basically from seeing what else was out there and where all the bits that were missing were, and where people were like on the right track but the wrong train, and said, you know, you're actually causing trouble for yourself there. So, you know, there was a fair percentage of the work, probably 50% of the work had been done by other people. But there was a lot of information that was channeled information through for me to look at and to construct something that was really all encompassing. And yeah, there was a lot of work involved, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I think the benefits will really start to show in the next few months, because these documents are now being filed with courts. It's like with Zev. Zev files amazing documents, and we're always bouncing off each other, so that, you know, my documents get stronger when I run them through Zev and Daniel Luke and vice versa, because we're incorporating perspectives that haven't really been looked at before.
Yeah, I can see just from those quick glances at them that they're definitely your own. You've I can see, you know, like there's parts there that are to make it official or whatever, but you've definitely channeled something there and made your own documents. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, look, the reason why I don't sell these documents and I don't take, you know, that sort of ownership sort of position on it is because a lot of it really is channeled through for the benefit of all. And I don't think it's appropriate to be selling that, because I understand that it will come back in other ways. And so long as I'm happy and my kids are happy, then that's going to be fine. But I want to get them out as soon as possible. And I'm quite happy for people to comment on them and recommend ways that they might be improved. You know, they're always works in motion. And even the affidavit, I go back to the affidavit and make changes to it on a regular basis.
Yes.
The hardest challenge was to turn an 18-page affidavit into 1 page.
I'm still working on that myself. Like, I've got your affidavit, but I've always been working on it to make it my own, because there's so many parts of it that I love, and then there's other parts of it that I want to add.
Yeah, things need to be personalised, and people have brought their own spiritual beliefs into it and shaped it, and they've given it back to me and say, you know, is this okay? And I said, look, so long as you don't compromise the core principle of what the affidavit is, that you are a soul and you're only answerable to your creator. So long as you don't compromise that principle, it's fine to put stuff in.
Yeah.
Can you go through that common law court? What was the website name again?
Sorry, which one?
The website you were going to put the links up on.
Yeah, we'll definitely put them up. I think Catherine just give me a thumbs up on this. That probably definitely go up on commonlawcourtaus.org.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure, just with the control of that site. We might just confirm over the next few days, and then we'll let everyone know on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll definitely put it up on my YouTube channel, and I'll put the link out so that people can go to my YouTube channel and watch it if they want.
That's the Renaissance one?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex. That's been wonderful.
Yeah, I'll get it up there as quick as possible, because, and I do apologise, I pushed through so much information
Awesome.
there in that time, and I need a bit of a break now to get my...
Hey Alex, I've only been like with you guys for a short time, and I just have to say you're fucking awesome. You know, the energy that you put in here, where you come from with it, you know, and how you want to share everything, and the amount of information you give. If I was there, mate, I'd be cooking your breakfast, bringing your meals, doing your videos for you and everything, so you could just really focus on it. But I'm sorry, I'm not. But if you ever want any help, videos, you know, I'm an IT person, online, all that sort of stuff, I'm happy to help.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that very much. And there may be a time down the track when I need to get all my Egypt videos onto my website and get that happening. So I may reach out at some point just for how do I get this happening?
So I'm here. I'm helping Stephen at the moment with some stuff as well too. So
I have a very, very core passion that everybody has a right to know the truth. What they do with that knowledge is up to them. You know, if they want to cloud it with their fears and do whatever, that's fine. But I absolutely believe that everyone has a right to know what the truth is, even if it conflicts their belief structures and do whatever. And as you may know, you know, I've been channeling since I was quite young, and I can't run away from source. Source is in my head all the time, passing on information and doing that, and it's all for the benefit. It's all for the benefit of people, and I just feel that if that's part of my role here is to pass on that information, then I just need to do it with the greatest amount of clarity that I can. And probably all of my training as a performer over years and years and years, and public speaking and doing all of that, has been to prepare me for this, so that I'm quite comfortable, you know, in front of a crowd of 10,000 people. I'm quite comfortable in a camera, and I would like to think I'm reasonably articulate in getting the message through as clear as possible.
Yeah, I sent you a email there just before, when you get the chance. No rush today, obviously, but yeah, I'd love the feedback on it as well.
So I'm going to have a break, because I've spent a lot of time coordinating this, and now that it's gone, my brain is wanting to just shut down for an hour. So
thank you so much, Alex. I've collated all the questions from the chat for you as well into a Word document.
You're awesome. Thank you. I'll save the chat messages anyway, so that I've got them.
What time do you want to start again?
How's 2:15 for everyone?
Yep, perfect. If that's okay for you, Alex, I know that it's draining.
Yeah, no, that'll be fine. You know, believe me, I spent 39 hours in a theatre once, bumping a show in and getting it up and running without a break. And so I just treat it like it's another theatre gig, and you just focus in it. There's a way you do this, actually, for those of you. I'll just quickly give it to you. Because your brain's in two halves, if you work one half of the brain for too long, you need to shut it down and just let the other half run for a while. If you work your brain too much on one side, it actually starts draining from the other side as well, and you get to a burnout point, and you need to be able to switch backwards and forwards. So that was just a bit of a big drain on one side of the brain, and the other side's tried to compensate. So it just needs a little bit of time just to clear my head a little bit.
Info overload, yeah, exactly, Ken. There's 1 minute to go till it's 1:15. Let's let you go.
Cool, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you very much, and I'll see you in an hour.
Yeah.
Will do. Thanks. See you.